My mother-in-law tried to prove I was an unfit parent, so I proved she was an unfit grandmother instead. It started when my 3-year-old daughter Emma came home from her weekend at Grandma Linda's house with a black eye. She fell down the stairs, Linda explained with that fake concerned voice she used whenever she got caught. These things happen when children aren't properly supervised. The accusation was clear. I was a neglectful mother. My husband Jake immediately sided with his mother, like always. Emma's clumsy. You know that. But Emma wasn't clumsy. And the bruise on her eye looked exactly like fingerprints. That night, I held Emma while she sobbed into my shoulder. Grandma said bad words when I spilled juice, she whispered. Then she grabbed my face really hard. My blood ran cold. The next morning, Linda called Jake at work. I'm concerned about Emma's safety, she said, loud enough for me to hear through the phone. Sarah seems overwhelmed. Maybe Emma should stay with us more often. Linda had been building a case against me for months, pointing out every scraped knee, every time Emma's hair wasn't perfectly brushed, every instance where I seemed stressed or distracted. What she didn't know was that I'd started documenting everything too. When Jake suggested Emma spend the entire summer with his parents, I knew Linda's plan was working. It would be good for her, he said. And you could use the break. That's when I realized my marriage was over. But first I had to protect my daughter. I made a decision that would change everything. The next Friday, instead of dropping Emma off at Linda's house, I installed a hidden camera in Emma's favorite stuffed animal, a pink bear she took everywhere. The camera was tiny, undetectable, and would record everything for 12 hours. I dropped Emma off with my usual smile. Have fun with Grandma, sweetheart. Linda barely looked at me. We'll call if there are any problems, she said coldly. 12 hours later, I picked up Emma and her bear. She was quieter than usual, but Linda seemed pleased with herself. Emma was much better behaved today, she announced. She's learning proper discipline. That night, after Emma was asleep, I connected the camera to my laptop. What I saw made me physically sick. The footage started normally. Linda giving Emma lunch, playing with toys. But as soon as Emma spilled apple juice on her dress, Linda's demeanor changed completely. You stupid little brat, she hissed, grabbing Emma's arm so hard my daughter yelped. Just like your mother, clumsy and worthless. I watched in horror as Linda dragged Emma to the bathroom and forced her to stand in the corner for 2 hours. When Emma cried, Linda screamed at her to shut up. Nobody cares about your tears, Linda said. Your mother doesn't want you. That's why you're here. But the worst part came when Emma asked for water. Linda grabbed her by the shoulders and shook her. What did I tell you about asking for things? You get what I give you. Then she locked Emma in the guest bedroom for 3 hours. I could hear my daughter sobbing through the door, begging to come out. Please, Grandma, I'll be good, Emma's tiny voice pleaded. You should have thought of that before being such a brat, Linda replied through the door. When Emma wet herself from fear, Linda made her sit in the soiled clothes as punishment. This is what happens to bad girls, she said. Now you know how disgusting you are. I had to pause the video multiple times to vomit. This woman had been alone with my daughter dozens of times over the past year. The footage was devastating, but I needed more than one incident to build a case that would protect Emma permanently. The next weekend, I sent another recording device, this time sewn into Emma's jacket. The results were even worse. Linda had invited her neighbor friend Margaret over, and they spent the afternoon critiquing everything about Emma while treating her like a science experiment. Look at her posture, Margaret said, sipping tea while Emma stood trembling in the center of the room. No discipline at home, obviously. Sarah doesn't know how to raise a child, Linda agreed, circling Emma like a predator. That's why Emma needs to live here permanently. They made Emma stand perfectly still in the center of the living room while they pointed out her flaws in excruciating detail. Feet together, back straight, chin up, Linda commanded. This is how proper young ladies stand. When Emma's arms got tired and she dropped them slightly, Linda slapped her hands with a wooden ruler she kept specifically for these sessions. We'll do this until you get it right, she said with cold satisfaction. Your mother never taught you proper behavior, but I will. They made her practice for an hour and 15 minutes. Every mistake earned a sharp slap or harsh criticism. I watched my daughter's spirit break a little more with each cruel comment. Look at those fingernails, Margaret observed, leaning in close to Emma's trembling hands. Filthy. Sarah clearly doesn't teach basic hygiene. Emma had been gardening with me the day before, helping me plant flowers for Mother's Day. Her nails had traces of soil that I'd missed during her bath. I've been documenting everything, Linda said proudly, pulling out a thick folder. Sarah's drinking, her mood swings, Emma's constant injuries. The courts will see what kind of mother she really is. Margaret nodded approvingly. You're doing the right thing. That child deserves a stable home with proper guidance. Oh, she won't be with Sarah much longer, Linda replied smugly. I'm building an airtight case. Soon Emma will be where she belongs, with people who know how to raise children properly. They discussed my supposed failings while forcing Emma to stand motionless like a statue. When she shifted her weight or scratched an itch, Linda made her start the posture exercise over from the beginning. Your mother is weak, Linda told Emma directly, staring into her frightened eyes. That's why you have behavioral problems. But I'll fix you. I'll make you into a proper little lady. Emma started crying silently, tears streaming down her face. Stop that crying this instant, Linda snapped. Proper ladies don't cry over discipline. This is for your own good. That's when I realized the full scope of Linda's plan. She wasn't just trying to get more time with Emma. She was systematically breaking down my daughter's self-worth while building a custody case to steal her permanently. I found her documentation the following week when Jake asked me to pick up some papers from his parents' house for our taxes. Linda wasn't home, but Jake's father let me into the home office. She keeps all her important files in here, he said, gesturing to a wall of filing cabinets. Tax stuff should be in the family folder. There, in a manila folder labeled Emma's Welfare, was everything. Photos of Emma's scraped knees with timestamps and detailed descriptions. A leather-bound journal documenting every time I seemed tired or distracted. Screenshots of my social media posts that could be taken out of context. Even photographs of our house taken from outside, with notes about unsafe conditions. She'd even written detailed reports in the style of professional assessments, complete with letterhead she'd created. Date, March 15th, 7:30 p.m. Sarah appeared intoxicated at Emma's birthday party, slurring words and stumbling. Emma seemed embarrassed by her mother's behavior and sought comfort from other adults, witnessed by multiple guests. I'd had one glass of wine and twisted my ankle and heels while carrying Emma's birthday cake. Date, March 22nd, 8:15 a.m. Emma's clothes were wrinkled and mismatched, indicating neglect. Child appeared unkempt and tired, hair unbrushed, face unwashed. Sarah seemed irritated when I pointed out Emma's appearance. Emma had dressed herself that morning while I was dealing with a work crisis, and I thought her creative outfit choices were adorable. Date, April 3rd, 2:45 p.m. Sarah seems depressed and uninterested in parenting duties. Emma seeks attention from other adults, suggesting emotional neglect at home. Child appears hungry and asks repeatedly for snacks. I'd been grieving my father's death, and Emma was naturally social and always hungry for snacks. Date, April 10th, 4:20 p.m. Found Emma playing unsupervised near the pool area during family gathering. Sarah was nowhere to be found. Child could have drowned. When confronted, Sarah became defensive and angry. I'd been in the bathroom for 3 minutes, and the pool had a locked safety gate. The entries went on for pages, each one twisting normal parenting moments into evidence of my unfitness. Linda had been watching and documenting our lives for months, taking photos through our windows, timing my every move, and interpreting everything through the lens of neglect. At the bottom of the file was a business card for a family lawyer specializing in grandparents' rights, along with detailed notes about my supposed mental health issues and drinking problems. She'd even researched my medical history and found my prescription for anxiety medication after my father's death, which she documented as evidence of my instability. But there was more. I found a folder labeled Character References filled with statements from people in our community. Linda had apparently been conducting a whisper campaign about my parenting for months, carefully planting seeds of doubt about my fitness as a mother. Mrs. Henderson from the church. Sarah seems distracted during services. Emma often seeks attention from other adults. The child appears to be hungry for affection, which suggests emotional neglect at home. The pediatrician's receptionist. Sarah appears overly anxious during appointments. Asks excessive questions that suggest she's out of her depth with normal childhood development. Emma seems more comfortable with medical staff than with her mother. Even our mailman had been recruited. I've noticed that little girl plays outside alone frequently. Mother works from home but doesn't seem to supervise closely. Child has approached me several times, seeking adult attention. Every normal aspect of our life had been weaponized against me. Linda had twisted Emma's friendliness into evidence of neglect, my work from home schedule into negligence, and my natural parental concern into anxiety disorder. The most damning was a folder labeled Professional Evaluation. Linda had somehow convinced Emma's preschool teacher to document concerning behaviors, though I suspected the teacher had no idea how her observations would be used. Emma exhibits anxiety around loud noises and unexpected touch, the teacher had written. She apologizes excessively for normal childhood mistakes and seems fearful of authority figures. These behaviors have become more pronounced over the past few months. These were symptoms of abuse, but Linda was presenting them as evidence that I was the abuser, when in reality, they were signs of Linda's own treatment of Emma. That night, I copied everything and started planning my counterattack. I realized I was dealing with someone far more dangerous and calculating than I'd ever imagined. I researched Linda's past, something I'd never bothered to do before marriage. What I found was illuminating and terrifying. 3 previous jobs as a nanny, all ending with mysterious misunderstandings with families. A neighbor complaint about her treatment of her own pets that had been dismissed due to her sterling reputation. Most damning, a sealed juvenile record for Jake's older sister Rachel, who I'd never met but who Linda claimed was unstable. When I dug deeper into public records, I found a pattern. Every family Linda had worked for had experienced some kind of crisis shortly after her employment ended. One family had gone through a bitter custody battle. Another had dealt with CPS investigations. A third had seen their teenage daughter run away from home. When I asked Jake about his sister that evening, his face went pale. Rachel doesn't talk to the family anymore, he said quietly. Mom says she's unstable, had some kind of breakdown in college and blamed our family for everything that went wrong in her life. What kind of breakdown? I pressed. I don't know the details. She started saying crazy things about our childhood, making up stories about Mom being abusive. The therapist said she was having false memories or something like that. This sounded disturbingly familiar. Linda's pattern was becoming clear. She created chaos and then positioned herself as the solution. When's the last time you talked to Rachel? Jake shrugged uncomfortably. Maybe 10 years? She sent a card when Emma was born, but Mom threw it away. Said Rachel's influence would be toxic for a new baby, that she might try to fill Emma's head with the same lies she'd been spreading about our family. I hired a private investigator to track down Rachel. She was living across the country under her married name, working as a high school teacher, with 2 well-adjusted children of her own. When I called her, there was a long silence after I introduced myself. So you finally figured out what Linda really is, she said, her voice heavy with unsurprising resignation. I've been waiting for this call for years. I'm sorry for bothering you, I began, but I need to know about your childhood with Jake. Rachel laughed bitterly. Which version? The one Linda tells everyone? Or what actually happened behind closed doors? Rachel agreed to meet me the following weekend. I flew to Portland with copies of my video evidence and Linda's documentation, desperate to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with. Her story was heartbreaking and familiar. Rachel lived in a modest but warm house filled with her children's artwork and family photos. She was nothing like the unstable woman Linda had described. She broke my arm when I was Emma's age, Rachel said, showing me medical records she'd kept in a safety deposit box for over 20 years. Told everyone I fell off my bike. The doctor was suspicious. The break was consistent with someone grabbing and twisting, but Linda was so convincing. She cried and talked about how clumsy I was, how difficult it was to keep me safe. The pattern was clear. Linda had abused Jake and Rachel throughout their childhood, then convinced everyone she was the perfect mother when they struggled with the trauma. The psychological abuse was worse than the physical, Rachel continued, her voice steady but her hands shaking slightly. She had me convinced I was crazy, that my memories couldn't be trusted. She'd do horrible things to me, then the next day act like nothing had happened. When I'd try to tell my father or a teacher, she'd produce evidence that I was lying, fake diary entries she'd written in my handwriting, photos that seemed to contradict my story. Rachel showed me her own documentation, medical records spanning her childhood, therapy notes from college, even a recording she'd secretly made of Linda berating her during a phone call years ago. Listen to this, she said, playing the audio. Linda's voice was venomous, calling Rachel a pathological liar who was trying to destroy the family out of jealousy. This was from when I was 22 and trying to get help. Jake blocked it all out, Rachel explained. He had to, just to survive. She convinced him that I was jealous of their relationship, that I was mentally ill and trying to destroy the family with lies. He was her golden child, as long as he never questioned her version of reality. How did you break free? I asked. I didn't talk to them for 5 years, got intensive therapy, built a life away from her influence. When I met my husband, I had to learn what normal relationships looked like. It took years to trust my own memories and feelings. She looked at my videos with growing horror and recognition. This is exactly what she did to us, she said, tears streaming down her face. The isolation, the criticism, the way she makes the child feel responsible for the abuse. She's doing to Emma what she did to me. Will you help me? I asked. I've been waiting 20 years for someone to ask, she replied. Rachel provided me with detailed documentation of Linda's abuse pattern, including the names of the families she'd worked for and the chaos that had followed her employment. Together, we built a comprehensive picture of a woman who systematically destroyed families while positioning herself as their savior. Armed with Rachel's testimony and documentation, I returned home and confronted Jake directly. Your mother is abusing Emma, I said, showing him the videos. He watched in stunned silence as Linda screamed at our daughter, locked her in rooms, and made her stand in wet clothes. I could see him struggling with cognitive dissonance. The loving mother he remembered fighting against the evidence in front of his eyes. This isn't real, he whispered, his face pale. You edited this somehow. Mom would never— Call your sister, I said, handing him Rachel's phone number. The conversation lasted 3 hours. I could hear Rachel's voice through the phone, gentle but firm, walking Jake through memories he'd buried deep. She reminded him of incidents from their childhood, times when he'd hidden in closets, nights when he'd wet the bed from fear, the way Linda would hurt Rachel and then comfort him afterward, making him complicit in the abuse. When he hung up, he was sobbing like a broken child. I remember now, he said through his tears. I remember hiding in the closet when she'd lose her temper. I remember Rachel trying to protect me, taking the blame for things I did. I remember being so afraid of making her angry. He looked at me with broken eyes. How could I have let her near Emma? How could I not have seen it? Because you were conditioned not to see it, I said gently. She spent your entire childhood training you to doubt your own perceptions, just like she's conditioning Emma now. The next morning, Jake called his mother with shaking hands. Emma won't be staying with you anymore, he said simply. Linda's reaction was immediate and explosive. How dare you keep my granddaughter from me? She screamed loud enough for me to hear across the room. You're both unfit parents. I have documentation proving it. I'll take that child away from you if it's the last thing I do. We know what you've been doing, Jake said quietly. I've been protecting that child from your wife's neglect, Linda hissed. Sarah is mentally unstable, just like your sister. Emma deserves a real family who can give her proper guidance and discipline. We are protecting her, Jake said, his voice growing stronger. From you. You've poisoned him against me, Linda spat into the phone. Just like that psychotic sister of his filled his head with lies, I won't let you destroy another family. I have evidence, Jake. Evidence that will show everyone what kind of mother Sarah really is. She hung up and immediately called her lawyer. 2 days later, we received papers. Linda was filing for emergency custody, claiming Emma was in immediate danger from neglect and abuse at home. Her petition was a masterpiece of manipulation, filled with lies and twisted truths that painted me as a dangerous, unstable mother, and Jake as an absent, neglectful father. She claimed I was an alcoholic who drank during the day while caring for Emma. She said Jake traveled constantly for work and showed no interest in parenting. She alleged that Emma showed signs of severe physical and emotional abuse, including unexplained injuries, behavioral problems, and fear of her own parents. She'd attached photos of Emma's normal childhood injuries, scraped knees from learning to ride a bike, a bump on her forehead from running into a table, a bruise on her shin from playground equipment, as evidence of our failure to protect her. Each photo was accompanied by detailed descriptions that made normal childhood accidents sound like evidence of abuse. The petition also included professional opinions from people in our community. Linda had somehow convinced several people to sign statements about my supposed unfitness as a mother, carefully wording their concerns to sound damning without being overtly false. The hearing was scheduled for the following week, giving me very little time to prepare a defense against years of careful planning on Linda's part. I spent those days working with our lawyer, David Chen, a family attorney who specialized in defending against false allegations. He was a soft-spoken man with kind eyes who had seen cases like this before. "This is more common than you'd think," he told me during our first meeting. "Abusive grandparents often project their own behavior onto the parents they're trying to discredit. They build false cases over months or years, carefully documenting normal parenting struggles as evidence of abuse." I compiled my video evidence, Rachel's testimony, Linda's employment history, and medical records showing the pattern of abuse across generations. Most importantly, I arranged for Emma to be interviewed by Dr. Sarah Martinez, a child psychologist who specialized in abuse cases. The interview with Dr. Martinez was heartbreaking. Emma, who had always been chatty and outgoing, became quiet and withdrawn when asked about her grandmother. She drew pictures that no 3-year-old should be able to draw, images of fear and powerlessness that spoke to trauma beyond her years. Emma's exhibiting classic signs of emotional abuse, Dr. Martinez told me after the session, but she's also showing remarkable resilience. "You've done a good job creating a safe environment for her to process what she's experienced." The hearing was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. The courtroom was packed with Linda's supporters, people from her church, neighbors, family friends who had no idea what she was really like behind closed doors. Linda arrived with her lawyer, dressed in a conservative navy suit that made her look like the perfect grandmother. She'd even brought tissues and kept them prominently displayed on the table, ready for her performance. She testified tearfully about Emma's concerning behaviors and my obvious neglect, painting herself as a reluctant whistleblower who had tried everything to help before resorting to legal action. "That child is crying out for help," she said, dabbing her eyes with practiced precision. "She comes to my house anxious and fearful. When I try to comfort her, she flinches as if she's been hit. I've tried to work with Sarah to offer support and guidance, but she becomes defensive and angry whenever I express concern." Her lawyer presented their evidence methodically. The photos, the documentation, character witnesses who testified to Linda's wonderful reputation as a grandmother and pillar of the community. The pediatrician's receptionist took the stand. "Mrs. Morrison always accompanies Emma to appointments. She asks thoughtful questions and clearly cares about the child's well-being. Sarah seems distracted and overwhelmed, always asking about normal childhood developments as if she doesn't understand her own child." Mrs. Henderson from church testified, "Linda is devoted to that little girl. She's always talking about Emma's development and expressing concern about the home environment. She's mentioned several times that she's worried about Emma's safety. Even our neighbor spoke against me. Emma spends a lot of time outside unsupervised. I've seen her playing near the street while Sarah is inside working on her computer. The child often approaches adults in the neighborhood seeking attention." Linda's lawyer painted a picture of a caring grandmother trying to save her grandchild from neglectful parents who were too proud or damaged to accept help. "My client has reluctantly come forward," the lawyer said in closing, "because she fears for Emma's safety. The evidence shows a clear pattern of neglect and possible abuse. Emma deserves a stable, loving home with adults who can provide proper care and guidance." I watched the judge's face during Linda's presentation, trying to read his expression. He seemed sympathetic to her story, nodding along with her testimony. My heart sank as I realized how convincing she was, how perfectly she'd crafted her case. Then it was our turn. David Chen stood slowly and addressed the court with quiet confidence. "Your Honor, we're here today because the petitioner has systematically abused her granddaughter while building a false case against the child's loving parents. What you're about to see will shock you, but it represents the truth about Linda Morrison." He played the first video. The courtroom went completely silent as Linda's real voice filled the room, harsh and cruel in a way that contrasted sharply with her gentle testimony. "You stupid little brat, just like your mother, clumsy and worthless." I watched Linda's face as her own words played back. For just a moment, her mask slipped, and I saw pure rage flash across her features before she composed herself again. We played clip after clip. Linda screaming at Emma, grabbing her roughly, locking her in rooms, making cruel comments about her granddaughter's appearance and behavior. The contrast between the woman on the witness stand and the woman in the videos was jarring. The judge's expression grew darker with each video, his earlier sympathy evaporating as he watched Linda's systematic abuse of a 3-year-old child. "Your Honor," Linda's lawyer stammered, "these videos are clearly edited or taken out of context. My client was attempting to provide discipline and structure." "Are you claiming this is not your client's voice?" David asked. The lawyer had no response. The videos were clearly unedited, showing continuous footage of Linda's abuse. We played the audio of Linda discussing her plan to take custody with her friend Margaret, her cruel comments about Emma's supposed defects, her systematic emotional abuse designed to break a 3-year-old's spirit. The room was silent except for the sound of Linda sobbing on the recording. Not tears of remorse, but frustrated rage at a child who wouldn't conform to her impossible demands. Then Rachel took the stand. She testified about her childhood with calm composure, speaking clearly about decades of abuse while maintaining her dignity. She showed the court medical records spanning years, injuries that couldn't be explained by normal childhood accidents, emergency room visits where doctors had noted suspicious patterns. My mother is very good at appearing concerned, Rachel said, looking directly at Linda. But behind closed doors, she's a predator who systematically targets the most vulnerable family members. She destroyed my childhood, convinced everyone I was mentally ill when I tried to get help, and now she's doing the same thing to Emma. Linda's lawyer attempted to discredit Rachel during cross-examination, suggesting she was unstable and seeking attention. Ma'am, isn't it true that you've been estranged from your family for years due to mental health issues? Rachel smiled sadly. I've been estranged from my abuser for years due to her mental health issues. There's a significant difference. The child psychologist testified next, presenting Emma's drawings and explaining their significance. Emma displays classic signs of emotional abuse, Dr. Martinez said. She flinches when touched unexpectedly, apologizes constantly for normal behavior, and shows severe anxiety around authority figures. She presented Emma's artwork from their sessions. When asked to draw her family, Emma had drawn herself, her parents, and several friends in bright colors. When asked specifically about her grandmother, Emma had drawn disturbing pictures. A large, angry face with sharp teeth hovering over a small figure. A little girl locked in a box. A woman with claws reaching for a crying child. The child described feeling scared and confused at her grandmother's house. Dr. Martinez continued, she believes she's bad, and that's why these things happen to her. This kind of self-blame is typical in abuse victims who are too young to understand that they're not responsible for adult behavior. In your professional opinion, David asked, who poses a threat to this child's well-being? Absolutely the grandmother, Dr. Martinez replied without hesitation. Emma shows no signs of abuse in her primary home. Her parents have created a secure, loving environment where she can express herself freely. The trauma symptoms only appear in relation to visits with the petitioner. Linda's lawyer had no meaningful questions for any of our witnesses. The evidence was overwhelming. Finally, David presented Linda's employment history, the pattern of families who terminated her services under mysterious circumstances, the neighbor complaints that had been dismissed due to her reputation, the systematic way she'd built false cases against Emma's parents while abusing the child herself. Your Honor, David concluded, this is not a custody case. This is a criminal matter. The petitioner has committed systematic child abuse while attempting to steal a child from her loving parents through fraudulent legal proceedings. The judge took a brief recess to review the evidence, then returned with a stern expression. This petition is not only denied in its entirety, but I'm issuing an immediate restraining order, he said, looking directly at Linda. Mrs. Linda Morrison is prohibited from any contact with the minor child, directly or indirectly, for a period of no less than 10 years. He turned to the court clerk. Please ensure law enforcement is notified of this order immediately, and that copies are sent to the child's school and daycare providers. Then he looked back at Linda, whose face had transformed from white to red, with barely contained rage. Your behavior, as documented in these recordings, constitutes clear evidence of systematic child abuse. I'm referring this case to the district attorney for immediate criminal prosecution. Additionally, I'm ordering a full investigation into your past employment as a caregiver, and I'm recommending that your name be added to child abuse registries to prevent future employment with children. Linda couldn't contain herself any longer. She exploded out of her chair. This is ridiculous, she screamed. I'm the only one who truly cares about that child. These people have poisoned her against me with their lies and manipulation. Ma'am, the judge said firmly, you will sit down and remain silent, or I will hold you in contempt of court. Linda's lawyer grabbed her arm and tried to force her back into her seat, but she continued ranting. That child is in danger. Sarah is mentally unstable just like Jake's sister. Emma needs proper guidance and discipline, not this permissive nonsense that's ruining her. Bailiff, the judge called. As the bailiff approached, Linda finally sat down, but her mask had completely slipped. The gentle grandmother act was gone, replaced by the cruel, controlling woman I'd seen in the videos. The judge continued. I've been on this bench for 15 years, and I've rarely seen such clear evidence of systematic child abuse disguised as concern. The petitioner's actions represent a danger not just to this child, but potentially to other children in the community. He paused, looking around the courtroom at Linda's supporters, many of whom now looked shocked and confused. I want to be very clear about what happened here today. This was not a case of a loving grandmother expressing legitimate concerns. This was a predator using the legal system to continue her abuse of a child while attempting to discredit the very parents who were protecting that child from harm. Linda sat in stunned silence, finally understanding that her perfect plan had not only failed but destroyed her completely. But I wasn't done. Outside the courthouse, I handed copies of the videos to the local news station and several national media outlets that covered stories about child abuse. Linda's carefully crafted reputation in our small town evaporated overnight. The story ran on the evening news with the headline, Respected Grandmother Caught Abusing Toddler on Hidden Camera. They interviewed Dr. Martinez about signs of child abuse, showed selected clips from the recordings with Emma's identity protected, and discussed how predators often present themselves as concerned caregivers. Within hours, the story had spread to social media and picked up by larger news outlets. Linda's Bridge Club issued a statement distancing themselves from her. Her church asked her to step down from all ministries involving children. Neighbors who had praised her parenting skills for decades suddenly remembered concerning incidents they'd previously ignored or dismissed. 3 other families came forward with their own stories about Linda's babysitting. Children who'd returned home upset or injured, explanations that hadn't quite made sense. their own gut feelings that something was wrong, but that they dismissed because of Linda's sterling reputation. One mother, Jennifer Walsh, shared her story on local news. My daughter Emma, also named Emma coincidentally, was 7 when Linda babysat for us. She came home one night and said Linda made her stand in the corner for hours because she couldn't tie her shoes fast enough. When I asked Linda about it, she said Emma was exaggerating and that children often make up stories to avoid consequences. I believed her because everyone said she was wonderful with kids. Another family revealed that their son had been afraid to stay with Linda after she forced him to eat food he was allergic to as discipline for being too picky. They'd switched babysitters but never reported the incident because they doubted their child's version of events. The criminal case moved swiftly. With video evidence, multiple witnesses, and Linda's outburst in court, the district attorney had an airtight case. Linda initially tried to fight the charges, claiming the videos were edited and that she was the victim of a conspiracy. But when faced with the overwhelming evidence, including expert analysis confirming the videos were authentic, she had no choice but to accept a plea deal. She pled guilty to child endangerment, filing false reports, and perjury. She received 2 years in prison, followed by 5 years probation, 500 hours of community service, mandatory psychological counseling, and a permanent ban from working with children in any capacity. The judge also ordered her to pay for Emma's therapy and issued a lifetime restraining order that extended to any future children in our family. Your actions have traumatized an innocent child and violated the sacred trust between a grandparent and grandchild, the judge told her during sentencing. You used your position of authority and respect in the community to systematically abuse a vulnerable child while attempting to destroy her family through fraudulent legal proceedings. Linda stood silently during sentencing, no longer bothering with her concerned grandmother act. The mask was permanently off. Jake struggled deeply with the revelations about his mother, but he remained committed to protecting Emma and processing his own trauma. We started family counseling together, working with a therapist who specialized in generational abuse patterns. I spent my entire life believing her version of events, he said during one particularly difficult session. She convinced me that Rachel was crazy, that my memories couldn't be trusted, that questioning her meant I was being disloyal to family. Survivors often protect their abusers, our therapist explained patiently. It's a psychological defense mechanism that helps children survive trauma. You were conditioned from birth to prioritize your mother's emotions over your own safety and perceptions. Jake worked incredibly hard to deprogram years of manipulation and gaslighting. He started having regular phone calls with Rachel, rebuilding their relationship and processing their shared trauma. Watching him reconnect with his sister was beautiful. They had so much healing to do together. Emma also started therapy specifically designed for young trauma survivors. In age-appropriate ways, she learned that adults shouldn't hurt children, that it's okay to tell the truth about scary things, and that she was loved unconditionally regardless of her behavior. Her progress was remarkable. The night terrors stopped within a month. She started laughing freely again, the spontaneous, joyful laughter of a child who feels safe. The constant apologizing faded as she learned that making mistakes was normal and wouldn't result in punishment or rejection. Grandma Linda was sick in her heart, Emma told me one day while we were coloring together. But you and Daddy keep me safe now. 6 months after the trial, we moved across the country for Jake's job transfer. A fresh start away from Linda's lingering influence and the small-town gossip that never quite dies, even after truth comes to light. Emma thrived immediately in her new preschool. She made friends easily and showed no signs of the anxiety and hypervigilance that had characterized her behavior during the abuse period. Her new teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, pulled me aside after the first week. Emma is such a confident, happy child, she said with genuine warmth. She speaks up for herself, shows real empathy for others, and has wonderful emotional regulation for her age. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. If only she knew what we'd been through to get Emma to this healthy place. One evening, as I was tucking her into bed in our new house, she looked up at me with those big brown eyes that had seen too much for her age. Mommy, why was Grandma Linda so mean to me? I chose my words carefully, as I always did when discussing the past. Some people have sickness in their hearts that makes them want to hurt others, especially people who are smaller and can't protect themselves, I said gently, but that was never, ever your fault. You're a wonderful little girl who deserves only kindness and love. She nodded solemnly, processing this in her 3-year-old way. I'm glad she can't hurt me anymore. She can't, I promised, stroking her hair, and she never will again. 2 years later, Linda violated her restraining order by showing up at Emma's new school, somehow having tracked down our location. A vigilant teacher spotted her lurking near the playground during recess and immediately called police and administration. She was arrested within minutes and charged with violating a protective order and attempted child abduction. This time, there was no plea deal. She spent 8 months in jail and was released only to be immediately transferred to a psychiatric facility for evaluation. When she was finally released, she moved to another state entirely. We haven't heard from her since, though our lawyer maintains a standing order to be notified if she ever attempts to contact us or locate our whereabouts. Jake and I eventually divorced 2 years after the trial. The trauma had damaged our relationship too deeply to repair, despite our best efforts in counseling. We both carried too much guilt. Him for not protecting Emma from his mother, me for not recognizing the signs sooner. But we co-parent successfully, united in our commitment to Emma's well-being. She feels secure and loved between both of our homes, and we've both done extensive work to ensure we never repeat the patterns we learned in our own childhoods. Emma is 8 now, confident and happy. She participates in multiple activities, has close friendships, and shows no lasting effects from Linda's abuse. She doesn't remember much about her grandmother anymore, which is exactly how we wanted it. Her child psychologist says this is normal and healthy. Young children often don't retain detailed memories of trauma if they're removed from the situation quickly and given proper support to heal. Sometimes people ask me if I feel guilty about destroying Linda's reputation and family relationships. I don't. Not even a little bit. She made her choices when she decided to hurt a defenseless child. She chose to systematically abuse Emma while building a false case against me. She chose to use the legal system as a weapon to continue her abuse. I simply made sure everyone knew who she really was. The ripple effects of exposing Linda went far beyond our immediate family. The state launched a comprehensive investigation into her past employment and found a disturbing pattern of complaints that had been dismissed or buried because of her sterling reputation in the community. New legislation was passed requiring enhanced background checks for private caregivers and mandatory reporting training for all child care providers. Teachers and doctors received additional training on recognizing emotional abuse disguised as discipline or concern. Linda's case became a textbook example in child psychology courses about how predators use their reputation and social standing to access victims. Several universities now use our case study to train future social workers and family lawyers. Most importantly, Emma grew up knowing that she's valued and protected. She speaks up confidently when something bothers her. She sets appropriate boundaries with adults. She knows she deserves kindness and respect from everyone in her life. Linda tried to break Emma's spirit and steal her identity as a loved, worthy child. Instead, she made Emma stronger and more resilient. Last month, Emma came home from school excited about a new friend whose grandmother had visited their class. "Her grandma seems really nice," Emma said brightly. "She brought homemade cookies for everyone and read us stories. She didn't yell at anybody or make mean faces." I'm grateful that Emma has positive examples of what healthy family relationships look like. She deserves grandparents who celebrate her achievements, encourage her dreams, and love her unconditionally, not ones who try to destroy her sense of self-worth for their own psychological satisfaction. Emma still has one set of loving grandparents, my parents, who moved closer to us after everything happened. They shower her with appropriate affection and create the positive memories that every child deserves. They've also been incredibly supportive of Jake, welcoming him as a true son-in-law even after our divorce. Linda thought she could use my daughter as a weapon against me, positioning herself as the savior while painting me as an unfit mother. She believed her reputation and careful documentation would be enough to steal Emma away from her loving family. Instead, I used her own cruelty as a weapon against her. The truth was more powerful than all her lies and manipulation. The best revenge was simply letting Linda reveal who she really was. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't trusted my instincts and installed that camera. How long would Linda's abuse have continued? How much psychological damage would she have inflicted on Emma's developing sense of self? The thought terrifies me, but I'm grateful every day that I acted when I did. Emma knows she's loved, protected, and valued exactly as she is. She knows that adults who truly care about children don't hurt them, manipulate them, or try to turn them against their parents. She knows that when someone tries to harm her, there are people who will fight fiercely to keep her safe. Most importantly, she's learned that her voice matters, that speaking up about uncomfortable situations is not only okay, but necessary. This lesson will serve her well throughout her life. That's a lesson worth all the pain we went through to learn it. And that's how I knew that protecting Emma was worth destroying Linda's entire facade of respectability. The truth always wins in the end. You just have to be brave enough to document it and strong enough to fight for it. My sister said no one would ever date me, so she cried when I got engaged before her. Growing up, Violet was the pretty one, the charming one, the one who got asked to every dance while I stayed home with a book. Mom used to sigh and say, "At least you're smart, honey." Like that was some consolation prize for being invisible. Violet dated constantly. Star athletes, homecoming kings, guys who looked like they stepped out of cologne ads. She'd bring them to family dinners just to watch me squirm. "Maybe you could set her up with one of your friends," Mom would suggest hopefully. Violet would laugh. "My friends have standards." By the time I turned 25, I'd stopped going to family gatherings. Violet was on boyfriend number 4 that year, each one supposedly the one. Meanwhile, I was building my career as a civil engineer, traveling for projects, living my life. Then I met Owen at a construction site in Denver. He was the project manager, brilliant and kind, with this quiet confidence that made everyone listen when he spoke. We started with coffee breaks, then dinners, then everything else. 6 months in, he proposed. Simple, perfect, exactly us. I called my parents to share the news. Silence. Then Mom said, "Are you sure he's serious? Men don't usually..." She trailed off, but I heard it loud and clear. "Men don't usually choose you." I hung up. Violet called 10 minutes later. "Congratulations," she said, her voice tight. "I'm really happy for you." She wasn't. I could hear her crying after she thought she'd muted the phone. At our engagement party, Violet showed up with Preston, her latest. She wore white. Actually wore white to my engagement party. She kept touching Preston's arm, laughing too loudly, making sure everyone saw how perfect they were. But I noticed how he checked his phone constantly, how he barely looked at her. Mom pulled me aside. "Don't make a big fuss about the wedding," she whispered. "Violet's having a hard time with this." I just stared at her. My own mother asking me to downplay my happiness because my sister couldn't handle not being the center of attention. 2 weeks before my wedding, Violet called at 2 a.m. "I need to tell you something," she sobbed. Preston had cheated. They'd broken up. "I just thought maybe we could postpone your wedding," she said. "Just a month or two, until I feel better." I laughed, actually laughed. "No," She showed up at my wedding anyway, red-eyed and dramatic. During the reception, she cornered Owen near the bar. I watched from across the room as she touched his shoulder, leaned in close. My cousin Tessa appeared beside me. She's telling him you've always been jealous of her, Tessa whispered. That you're probably just using him to compete with her. Owen's face went cold. He stepped back, said something brief, and walked away. Violet stood there looking stunned. When he reached me, he kissed my forehead and said, "Your sister just tried to convince me you're marrying me out of spite." He smiled. I told her that was impossible because spite doesn't look at someone the way you look at me. We left early for our honeymoon. 3 days into our trip in Greece, my phone exploded with messages. Violet had posted on social media that she was engaged to Preston, the same Preston who'd cheated. She'd taken him back and he'd proposed, apparently the same week as my wedding. The announcement was full of photos, captions about true love conquering all, about finding her soulmate. I showed Owen. "Should we send congratulations?" he asked. "No," I said. "Something's wrong." I was right. 2 days later, Tessa sent me a screenshot. Preston's ex-girlfriend had commented on Violet's post. "He's still married to me. Our divorce won't be final for 6 months." I sat on our hotel balcony, the Aegean Sea stretching endlessly before me, and felt something shift. Violet had been so desperate to one-up me that she'd gotten engaged to a married man. But it got worse. When I got home and finally checked my email, there was a message from someone named Delilah. "I don't know if you know this," it read, "but your sister Violet has been messaging your fiancé, well, husband now, I guess, since before your engagement." My hands went numb. The email continued. Delilah was Owen's assistant at his previous job site. She'd noticed Violet's messages coming through on Owen's work phone, which she managed for scheduling purposes. "At first they seemed innocent," she wrote, "just asking about you, saying she wanted to make sure you were happy. But then they got weird. She started asking personal questions about Owen, about his finances, about whether he'd dated anyone before you." I sat staring at my laptop screen, the cursor blinking. Owen was in the shower, humming some Greek song we'd heard at a taverna the night before. I could hear the water running, could picture him completely unaware that our entire relationship might have been under attack this whole time. "She asked him to meet her for coffee," Delilah's email continued. "Said she needed his help with a surprise for you." Owen declined. "She asked again, and again. I'm only telling you this because the messages kept coming even after your wedding. The last one came yesterday. She told him she'd made a mistake, that she should have fought for him, that you didn't deserve him." I called Delilah immediately. It was 4 a.m. in Chicago, but she answered on the second ring. "I knew you'd call," she said. "I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner, but Owen made it clear he wasn't interested and I didn't want to ruin your engagement. But when she messaged again after your wedding, I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Do you have screenshots?" My voice sounded hollow. "All of them. I'll send them now." The shower turned off. I had maybe 3 minutes before Owen came out. My email dinged. Delilah had sent a folder with 47 screenshots. I opened the first one. "Violet. Hey, this is so random, but I wanted to reach out. I'm Violet's sister. I just wanted to say thank you for making her so happy." That one was dated 2 weeks after Owen and I started dating, before anyone knew we were serious, before I'd even told my family about him. "Owen. Thanks, she makes me happy too." Violet. "Can I ask you something? I'm planning a surprise for her birthday and I need your help." Owen. "Sure, what did you have in mind?" Violet. "Can we grab coffee? It's easier to explain in person." Owen. "I'm pretty busy this week. Can we just discuss it over text?" There were 15 more messages from Violet trying to set up a meeting, Owen politely declining each time. Then the messages changed tone. "Violet, I have to be honest with you, I'm worried about my sister. She has a history of moving too fast in relationships and getting hurt. I just want to make sure you're serious about her." Owen. "I'm very serious about her. You don't need to worry." Violet. "It's just that she's been hurt before, by men who seemed serious at first. How do I know you're different?" Owen. "You'll have to trust me, or better yet, trust your sister to make good decisions." I scrolled faster. The bathroom door opened. I slammed the laptop shut. Owen emerged in a towel, water still dripping from his hair. "Everything okay?" he asked, noticing my face. I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Did Violet ever message you?" His expression shifted. "Yeah, she did." "Why didn't you tell me?" He sat down on the bed next to me. "Because it didn't matter. She was clearly trying to cause problems, and I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. I figured if I ignored her, she'd eventually stop." "Did she stop?" "No." He ran his hand through his wet hair. "The messages got more intense. She started saying things about you, about your past relationships, trying to make me doubt you. Then she started making it about her, saying she'd made a mistake introducing us. She didn't introduce us. We met at a construction site." "I know." That's when I realized she was lying about everything, so I blocked her number. I opened the laptop again and showed him the screenshots. All 47 of them. He scrolled through in silence, his jaw tightening with each message. "This one," I pointed to a message sent 3 days before our wedding. "This one says she loves you. Violet, I can't stop thinking about you. I know it's wrong. I know the timing is terrible. But I think I'm in love with you. I think I have been since the moment we met. Owen, we've never met, Violet. And I'm marrying your sister in 3 days. Don't contact me again. Violet, we did meet at your engagement party. You probably don't remember because you were so focused on her, but I felt something. I know you felt it too." Owen had blocked her after that, but the messages had continued to his work email, which was public. The last one had been sent yesterday. "Violet, I know you blocked me. I know you think I'm crazy, but I need you to know that she's not who you think she is. She's using you to get back at me for being prettier, more successful, more loved. Our whole lives she's been jealous of me. This is just another way for her to win." Owen closed the laptop. "This is insane. This is Violet." We sat in silence. The Greek sun streamed through the windows, making everything look surreal. I thought about every interaction with my sister. Every moment she'd made me feel small. The comments about my appearance, my intelligence, my worth, the way she'd monopolized our parents' attention, their love, their pride, the way Mom had asked me to downplay my own wedding so Violet wouldn't feel bad. And now this. She'd tried to steal my husband before I'd even married him. What do you want to do? Owen asked quietly. I thought about it. I could confront her, scream at her, show our parents what she'd done, but that's what she wanted. Drama, attention, proof that I cared enough about her actions to react. Nothing, I said. We do nothing. We finish our honeymoon, we go home, and we live our lives. Without her in them. Owen nodded. I like that plan. We stayed in Greece for another week. We didn't talk about Violet again. We swam in the sea, ate grilled octopus at tiny restaurants, got lost in winding stone streets. It was perfect. Until we came home. The first sign something was wrong was our front door. It was unlocked. Owen and I lived in a secure building with a doorman, and we definitely locked the door when we left. Owen pushed it open slowly. Our apartment had been ransacked. Not robbed, ransacked. Drawers pulled out, contents dumped on the floor, couch cushions slashed, wedding photos ripped from frames, torn into pieces and scattered across the living room floor. On our bedroom mirror, written in red lipstick, "You don't deserve him." I called the police. They came, took photos, asked questions. The doorman swore no one had come up to our floor except maintenance, but the maintenance company had no record of any scheduled work. There was no sign of forced entry. Whoever did this had a key. Only 3 people had keys to our apartment. Me, Owen, and my mother. I'd given Mom a spare key 6 months ago when she'd offered to water my plants while I was traveling for work. Where's the key now? The police officer asked. I called Mom. Do you still have my apartment key? Of course, sweetheart. Why? Can you check right now? Make sure it's still there? I heard her moving around, opening drawers. It's not in the usual spot. Let me look. 5 minutes later. I can't find it. When did you need it? I'm sure it's here somewhere. When was the last time you saw it? Oh, I don't know. Maybe a few weeks ago? Violet borrowed it, actually. She said she wanted to drop off your wedding gift while you were on your honeymoon, as a surprise. The police officer's pen stopped moving. He looked at me. I gave him Violet's full name and address. They found her at Preston's apartment. The same Preston who was still legally married to someone else. She denied everything at first. Said she'd never been to our apartment, never touched anything. Then they showed her the security footage. The building's security cameras had caught everything. Violet entering with a key 2 days after our wedding. Leaving 3 hours later with 2 large garbage bags. Going back the next day with Preston, the 2 of them carrying out boxes. They'd stolen from us. While we were on our honeymoon, celebrating our marriage, my sister and her married boyfriend had broken into our home and stolen our wedding gifts, the cash gifts from the envelopes, my grandmother's jewelry that I'd worn on the wedding day, Owen's laptop, our passports, even the espresso machine we'd registered for. The police found most of it in Preston's storage unit. Violet had apparently planned to sell it all online. Why? The detective asked her. Why would you do this to your own sister? According to the police report, she'd said, because she has everything I want. She always gets everything. Preston was charged with breaking and entering and theft. Violet was charged with theft, vandalism, and criminal trespass. Preston's actual wife filed for divorce and sued both of them for emotional distress. Our parents hired Violet the best lawyer they could afford, spent $40,000 on her legal fees, and begged me not to press charges. She's your sister, Mom pleaded. She made a mistake. Family forgives. Family doesn't break into each other's homes. She was going through a difficult time. The Preston situation, your wedding, it was all too much for her. So my wedding was too much for her. My happiness was too much for her. You know what I mean. I do. I've always known what Violet's feelings matter. Violet's struggles matter. Violet's jealousy and rage and cruelty matter. And I should just accept it, forgive it, make myself smaller so she can feel bigger. That's not fair. You're right. It's not. It's not fair that I had to downplay my engagement because it hurt Violet's feelings. It's not fair that you asked me to postpone my wedding because Preston cheated. It's not fair that you gave her my apartment key without asking. It's not fair that even now, with police reports and evidence and her own confession, you're asking me to protect her from consequences. Mom started crying. She's my daughter. So am I. I pressed charges. All of them. Violet took a plea deal. 6 months in county jail, 2 years probation, community service, and a restraining order that prohibited her from contacting Owen or me for 5 years. Our father didn't speak to me for a year. Said I'd destroyed the family, turned my back on my own blood, chosen a man over my sister. Mom called occasionally, always with the same speech about forgiveness and moving forward and how families work through difficulties. I changed my locks. All of them. Installed a security system, started therapy. Owen and I bought a house in a different neighborhood. We didn't tell my parents the address. We had a small housewarming party. Our friends came. Owen's family came. Tessa came, the only member of my family I invited. I'm proud of you, she said, standing in our new kitchen, for setting boundaries, for protecting yourself. Mom thinks I'm cruel. Your mom has spent 30 years enabling Violet's worst behaviors. Of course she thinks accountability is cruelty. Life moved on. Owen got promoted to senior project manager. I got offered a position as lead engineer on a major infrastructure project in Seattle. We celebrated our first anniversary, then our second. Violet got out of jail after 4 months for good behavior. Mom sent me a text. She's changed. She wants to apologize. I didn't respond. 3 weeks later, Violet showed up at Owen's office. His assistant called me immediately. Your sister is here. Security is with her. She's demanding to see Owen. Tell security to enforce the restraining order. They escorted her out. She screamed the entire way, loud enough that people on other floors heard. She called Owen a coward, called me a vindictive bitch, said we'd both regret turning our backs on family. The police arrested her for violating the restraining order. Another court date. Another round of Mom begging me to drop the charges. Another round of dad not speaking to me. I sat in the courtroom and watched Violet cry. She wore a modest dress, her hair pulled back, minimal makeup. The perfect picture of a reformed woman who'd made mistakes. Her lawyer argued she'd only wanted to apologize, to make amends, that she'd been overwhelmed with remorse. The judge reviewed her previous charges, the theft, the vandalism, the stalking messages, the violations of the restraining order that security footage had captured at Owen's office. Ms. Peterson, he said, this court gave you an opportunity to prove you could respect boundaries. You've violated those boundaries repeatedly. I'm extending your restraining order to 10 years and adding another 6 months of jail time. Violet's face crumpled. She looked at our parents in the gallery. Dad's expression was granite. Mom was crying. Then Violet looked at me. I hate you, she mouthed. I didn't react, just watched as the bailiff led her away. Outside the courtroom, my parents confronted me. Happy now? Dad asked. Your sister's life is ruined. She ruined her own life. You could have stopped this. You could have shown mercy. I did show mercy. I didn't sue her for emotional distress. I didn't go to the media. I didn't tell everyone at her work what she did. I just asked her to leave us alone. She couldn't even do that. She's sick, Mom said. She needs help, not jail. I agree. She does need help. Maybe this will finally make her get it. They left without saying goodbye. I stood on the courthouse steps, the spring sun warm on my face. Owen appeared beside me, slipping his hand into mine. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I said. I really am. We went out for dinner that night. A little Italian place near our house, the kind with checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles. We ordered too much food and split a bottle of red wine. We talked about everything except my family, his new project, my upcoming trip to Seattle, the vacation we were planning to Iceland. When we got home, there was a letter taped to our front door. No envelope, just a single sheet of paper folded in half. I recognized Violet's handwriting immediately. Owen reached for it, but I stopped him. Let me. The letter was short. I've spent my whole life being better than you at everything. Prettier, more popular, more loved, and I still ended up here, in jail, alone. While you got the career, the husband, the perfect life. I don't understand how this happened, how you won, but you did. And I hate you for it. I hope you know that. I hope it keeps you up at night knowing your own sister hates you, because that's all I have left. My hate. And I'm going to hold on to it forever. I read it twice. Then I handed it to Owen. He read it in silence. When he finished, he said, What do you want to do with this? I could have kept it. Could have added it to the legal file as more evidence of harassment. Could have shown it to our parents as proof of Violet's continued malice. Could have framed it as a reminder of what I'd overcome. Instead, I walked to the fireplace, struck a match, held the paper to the flame and watched it curl and blacken and turn to ash. There, I said. Now she's really gone. The restraining order meant Violet couldn't attend family events if Owen or I were present. Thanksgiving came. Mom called. We're having dinner at our house. I'd love for you to come. Will Violet be there? She's my daughter. Of course she'll be here. Then I won't. This is getting ridiculous. It's been almost 3 years. Can't you just be in the same room for a few hours? No. Your father misses you. He knows where I live. He's not going to choose between his daughters. He already did. He chose Violet, like he always has. Mom was quiet for a long time. You've changed. You used to be so sweet, so understanding. I used to be a doormat. There's a difference. I spent Thanksgiving with Owen's family. His mother made too much food, and his nieces taught me a complicated board game I didn't understand. His father told embarrassing stories about Owen as a kid. It was warm and chaotic, and no one expected me to make myself smaller to keep the peace. Christmas came, no call from Mom, no card, nothing. I sent them a card anyway, just a simple one with a photo of Owen and me on a hike, both of us muddy and grinning. Inside I wrote, Merry Christmas, we're happy, we hope you are too. Mom called on New Year's Eve. Thank you for the card. You're welcome. The photo is nice. You look healthy. I am. Violet's doing better. She got a job at a call center. She's in therapy twice a week. That's good. She asks about you sometimes. Wonders how you're doing. Mom, I know. I'm not supposed to pass messages. I just thought you'd want to know. I don't. Silence. Then, I miss you. I felt something crack open in my chest. I miss you too. Can we have lunch? Just us? I met her at a cafe near her house. She looked older, tired. She hugged me too long. I'm sorry, she said when we sat down. For everything. For making excuses for Violet. For asking you to minimize your happiness. For giving her your key. For not protecting you the way I should have. I didn't know what to say. I'd imagined this conversation 1,000 times, and in every version, I'd had the perfect response. Eloquent and cutting and final. But sitting across from my mother, seeing the regret in her eyes, I couldn't remember any of those speeches. Why? I asked instead. Why was it always her? Mom stirred her coffee. Because she demanded it. From the moment she was born, she demanded attention, affection, everything. And if she didn't get it, she'd scream until she did. You were different. You were quiet, self-sufficient. You didn't need me the way she did. I did need you. I know. Her voice broke. I know you did. And I failed you. I told myself I was being fair, giving each daughter what she needed. But really, I was just taking the path of least resistance. It was easier to give Violet what she wanted than to deal with her tantrums. And you never complained. So I thought you were fine. I wasn't fine. I was invisible. You were never invisible to me. I just got so used to you being strong that I forgot you needed support too. We talked for 2 hours. She told me about her childhood, about being the youngest daughter expected to cater to her older sisters, about how she'd seen herself in me, the capable one, the responsible one, about how she'd unconsciously recreated the same dynamic with her own daughters. Your father and I are in marriage counseling, she said. We're trying to understand our role in all of this. He's having a harder time with it than I am. He still thinks if everyone would just forgive and forget, we could go back to normal. There is no normal. There never was. I'm starting to see that. We finished our coffee. She walked me to my car. Can we do this again? She asked. Lunch? Maybe. I'll take maybe. I drove home and told Owen everything. He listened without interrupting. Do you believe her? He asked when I finished. I don't know. Part of me wants to. Part of me is waiting for her to defend Violet again, to ask me to give her one more chance. What does your gut say? I thought about it. That she means it. But meaning it isn't the same as changing. No, it's not. 3 months later, Mom invited me to lunch again. This time she brought photo albums. Pictures from my childhood I'd never seen. Me at my high school graduation, beaming. Me at a science fair, holding a trophy. Me building a birdhouse with my grandfather. I found these in the attic, she said. I'd forgotten about them. But looking through them, I realized something. I have hundreds of photos of Violet. At every birthday party, every school event, every achievement. But I only have a handful of you, because I was always behind the camera at Violet's events, and always in the audience at yours. Never documenting, never celebrating the same way. She slid one photo across the table. Me at 8 years old, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up a certificate for perfect attendance. Do you remember this? She asked. No. You were so proud. You'd worked so hard, never missed a day even when you were sick. You wanted to show me right away. But when you got home, Violet was having a meltdown because she didn't make the cheerleading squad. I told you we'd celebrate your award later. We never did. I stared at the photo. At my younger self smile. So hopeful. I'm giving these to you, Mom said, because you deserve to have proof that you mattered, even if I didn't show it the way I should have. I took the albums home, spent an evening going through them. Owen sat beside me, pointing out photos. Look how cute you were. Is that your science fair project? You've always had that smile. That night, I called Mom. Thank you for the photos. You're welcome, sweetheart. This doesn't fix everything, I know, but it's a start. That's all I'm asking for. Slowly, carefully, we rebuilt something. Not the relationship we'd had before, but something new. Something built on honesty instead of avoidance. We had lunch once a month. She never mentioned Violet unless I asked, and I rarely asked. Dad was harder. He came to one lunch, sat in stiff silence while Mom and I talked about my work. When I mentioned Owen, Dad's jaw tightened. How is Owen? Mom asked, shooting Dad a warning look. He's great. Just got promoted to director of operations. That's wonderful. Dad finally spoke. Must be nice, having a supportive husband while your sister rots in a minimum wage job. Dad. What? It's true. She's working at a call center, living in a studio apartment, can barely make rent. Meanwhile, you're living in your big house with your fancy job and your perfect life. She broke into my home. She tried to steal my husband. She destroyed my wedding photos. She violated a restraining order. Twice. And you made sure she paid for it. The legal system made sure she paid for it. I just refused to be a victim anymore. Dad stood up. I can't do this. I can't sit here and pretend everything is fine when one daughter won't even help her own sister. He left. Mom stayed. I'm sorry, she said. Don't apologize for him. He's struggling. He thinks being a good father means protecting both daughters equally, even when one daughter is objectively wrong. That's not protection. That's enabling. I know. I didn't see Dad again for a year. Then Owen and I announced I was pregnant. Mom called immediately, crying happy tears. I could hear Dad in the background asking what was wrong. Nothing's wrong, Mom said. We're going to be grandparents. The phone went quiet. Then Dad's voice. Let me talk to her. I waited. Congratulations, he said stiffly. Thank you. When are you due? October. Another pause. Your mother wants to throw you a baby shower. That would be nice. Violet won't be invited. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. No, she won't. She's going to be hurt. She'll survive. He hung up. But 2 weeks later, a package arrived. A wooden rocking chair. Hand-carved. Beautiful. The card said, for the baby. Love, Dad. Owen assembled it in the nursery. I sat in it, rocking slowly, crying for reasons I couldn't fully explain. Mom threw the baby shower at her house. Dad was there, awkward but present. He gave me a hug that lasted 3 seconds longer than usual. You're going to be a great mother, he said. Thanks, Dad. The shower was small. Owen's family, my friends from work, Tessa and her wife, Mom's sister, who'd always been kind to me. No one mentioned Violet. No one asked why half the family was missing. We ate cake and opened presents and celebrated the life growing inside me. On my way out, Mom pulled me aside. Violet called this morning. She'd seen the shower on my calendar. She wanted to know if she could come. My stomach clenched. What did you tell her? I said no, that this was your day, and she'd forfeited the right to be part of these moments. How did she react? She cried, said I was choosing you over her, that I was a terrible mother, that she'd never forgive me. I'm sorry. Don't be. I should have said no to her a long time ago. Would have saved us all a lot of pain. My daughter was born on October 15th. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Perfect. We named her Iris, Owen's grandmother's name. Nothing from my family. A clean slate. Mom and Dad came to the hospital. Dad held Iris with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. She's beautiful, he whispered. Just like her mother, Mom said, smiling at me. For the first time in my life, I believed her. We took Iris home. Owen's parents came to visit, bringing casseroles and baby clothes and overwhelming love. My parents came too, less often but consistently. Mom taught me how to swaddle. Dad installed a car seat with meticulous precision. Life fell into a rhythm. Sleepless nights, endless laundry, the peculiar joy of a baby's first smile. Owen was an incredible father, patient and gentle and completely smitten. We were exhausted and happy and building our family exactly the way we wanted. Then Iris turned 6 months old. I was at the grocery store with her when I saw Violet. She was at the opposite end of the aisle, staring at us. She looked different, thinner. Her hair was shorter, darker. She looked worn down. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she started walking toward us. My first instinct was to run. The restraining order had expired 2 months ago, so legally she could approach me, but every cell in my body screamed danger. I stood my ground, put myself between her and the stroller. She stopped a few feet away. "She's beautiful," Violet said, looking at Iris. "Thank you. She has your eyes." "What do you want, Violet?" "I'm not here to cause problems. I just wanted to see my niece." "She's not your niece. You gave up that right when you broke into my home. That was years ago. People change." "Do they?" Violet's jaw tightened. "I've been in therapy. Real therapy. Not the court-mandated stuff. I'm working on myself." "Good. Work on yourself somewhere away from me and my family. I'm trying to apologize." "I don't want your apology. You're not even going to give me a chance?" "You've had hundreds of chances. You've wasted all of them." She looked at Iris again, her expression softening. "Mom and Dad told me about her. They showed me pictures. I'm an aunt." "No. You're a stranger who shares my DNA. That's cold. That's honest." A store employee approached, sensing tension. "Is everything okay here?" "Fine," I said. "I'm just leaving." I pushed the stroller past Violet. She didn't follow. But as I reached the end of the aisle, she called out, "I'm sorry for all of it. I know you don't believe me, but I am." I didn't turn around, just kept walking, loaded my groceries, buckled Iris into her car seat, drove home with shaking hands. Owen was in the garage when I pulled up. He took one look at my face and knew. "What happened?" "Violet. At the store." His expression darkened. "Did she threaten you?" "No. She apologized." "Do you believe her?" I thought about her face. The genuine remorse I'd seen there. The exhaustion. The years that had passed since the last time we'd spoken. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Part of me wants to. The same part that still remembers being kids together, sharing a room, telling secrets in the dark, but the rest of me remembers everything that came after." "You don't owe her forgiveness." "I know. That night I called Mom. Violet approached me today." "I know. She called me right after. She was crying." "Did she say what happened? That she tried to apologize and you rejected her? That you wouldn't even look at her?" "That's not exactly what happened." "I figured. But that's Violet's version, the victim narrative. So you don't believe her?" Mom sighed. "I want to. God, I want to believe she's changed. That the therapy is working. That she's genuinely sorry. But I've been through this cycle before. The apology, the promises, the temporary improvement. Then something happens and we're right back where we started. So what do I do? Whatever feels right for you. You don't owe her anything. Not forgiveness, not a relationship, not even acknowledgement. You've built a good life without her. You're allowed to keep it that way." I thought about that. The life Owen and I had created. The home, the baby, the peace. Did I really want to risk it by letting Violet back in? A month later, Violet sent a letter. A real one, handwritten, 6 pages long. She wrote about her therapy, about realizing she'd spent her whole life deriving her self-worth from being better than me, about how when I finally succeeded in ways she couldn't, it had shattered her entire identity, about the jealousy that had consumed her, how it had poisoned every relationship she'd had. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," she wrote. "I know I've burned every bridge, destroyed every chance, but I need you to know that I see it now. I see what I did to you, the comments, the comparisons, the constant put-downs. I see how Mom and Dad enabled it, how they let me treat you like you were less than human, and I'm so sorry." The letter went on. She wrote about Preston, about how he'd used her desperation to manipulate her into helping him steal from us, about how she'd been so blinded by the need to one-up me that she couldn't see he was a con artist, about hitting rock bottom in jail, alone, realizing she'd destroyed her life for literally nothing. "I don't expect you to respond," she ended. "I don't expect anything from you. I just needed you to know that I see what I did. And if I could take it back, if I could go back to being kids and do it differently, I would. I'd be the sister you deserved, the one who celebrated your successes instead of resenting them, the one who had your back instead of stabbing it." I read the letter 3 times, showed it to Owen. "What do you think?" I asked. "I think it sounds genuine, but I also think she sounded genuine before." Mom said the same thing. "Do you want to forgive her?" Did I? I thought about it, about the years of pain, the wedding she'd tried to ruin, the home she'd violated, the nights I'd spent wondering why my own sister hated me so much. But I also thought about the sister I'd had before the jealousy consumed her, the one who'd let me hide in her room when I was scared of thunderstorms, the one who'd taught me how to French braid my hair, the one who'd existed before we'd been pitted against each other, before comparison had become competition. "I don't know," I said, "but I think I might want to try." I wrote back. 1 page. Simple. "I got your letter. I appreciate your honesty. I'm not ready for a relationship, but I'm willing to consider it in the future. If you're serious about changing, prove it through actions, not words. Stay in therapy. Build a life you're proud of without comparing it to mine. And maybe someday we can have a conversation." She wrote back immediately. "Thank you. That's more than I deserve. I'll prove it. I promise." A year passed. Then another. I'd see Violet occasionally at family events I attended without Owen. Christmas morning, Easter brunch, Mom's birthday. We'd nod at each other, exchange brief pleasantries. Nothing substantial. But I noticed changes. She didn't monopolize conversations anymore, didn't brag about her life or put down others. When Dad started to compare us during one dinner, she cut him off. "Don't," she said. "We're not in competition. We never should have been." Dad looked stunned. Mom smiled into her wine glass. Iris turned 2. We threw a birthday party at our house. I didn't invite Violet, but she sent a gift anyway. A beautiful wooden toy chest with Iris's name carved into it. The card said, "For your daughter. May she never doubt she's loved." I cried when I read it. 3 years after the grocery store encounter, Violet called me. "I know we're not there yet," she said, "but I wanted to tell you something. I'm engaged." "Oh, congratulations." "His name is Leo. He's a teacher. He knows everything about my past, about what I did to you, all of it. He's been pushing me to make amends, to be better. That's good. I'd like you to meet him. No pressure." Just coffee, if you're comfortable. I thought about it. About all the years that had passed. About the work Violet had clearly been doing. About the fact that she was asking, not demanding. Okay, I said. Coffee. We met at a neutral location, a cafe halfway between our houses. Owen came with me. Violet brought Leo. Leo was nothing like Preston or any of Violet's previous boyfriends. He was quiet, thoughtful, wearing a cardigan and glasses. He shook Owen's hand respectfully, didn't try to dominate the conversation. Violet was nervous. I could see her hands shaking as she stirred sugar into her coffee. Thank you for coming, she said. I know this is weird. It is, I agreed. We talked for an hour. About nothing important. The weather, Iris, Leo's students, Violet's new job as an office manager. It was stilted and awkward and nothing like the relationship we'd once had, but it was something. As we were leaving, Violet pulled me aside. I want you to know I'm not asking for us to be best friends. I'm not asking for you to forget what I did. I just want a chance to prove I'm not that person anymore. Okay, I said. Over the next year, we built something fragile. Coffee every few months. Brief text exchanges on holidays. When Violet got married, she didn't invite me to the ceremony. Instead, she sent me a photo afterward with a note. I didn't want to put pressure on you to attend, but I wanted you to know I thought about you today. About how you found a good man, and I finally did too. Thank you for showing me what that looks like. Iris turned 4. I invited Violet to the birthday party. She came with Leo, brought an appropriate gift, stayed for an hour. She played with Iris, gently, respectfully. She didn't overstep. When they left, Iris asked, "Who was that lady?" "That's Violet," I said. "She's my sister." "I didn't know you had a sister." "It's complicated." Owen's hand found mine. Most family things are. Mom and Dad were easier now. They'd stopped trying to force a reconciliation, stopped making excuses for Violet's past behavior. They attended therapy together, actually talked about their role in creating the dynamic that had poisoned their daughter's relationship. "We failed you both," Dad said during one particularly honest dinner. "We turned you into competitors instead of allies. We rewarded Violet's bad behavior by giving her attention and punished your good behavior by taking you for granted." "Yes," I said simply. "I can't take it back, but I can stop perpetuating it." And he did. When Iris did something clever, he praised her without comparing her to anyone else. When I shared good news about work, he celebrated it without worrying about how it might make Violet feel. He learned, slowly, to treat us as separate people with separate lives instead of two sides of the same competition. Violet got pregnant. She called to tell me, her voice careful. "I wanted you to know. I'm due in March. Congratulations." "That's wonderful. I've been thinking about becoming a mother, about how I was raised. I don't want to repeat those patterns." "Neither did I." "How do you do it? How do you make sure you're not damaging Iris the way we were damaged?" We talked for 2 hours. About conscious parenting, about breaking cycles, about therapy and self-awareness, and constantly questioning your own behaviors. It was the most honest conversation we'd had since we were kids. When Violet's son was born, I sent flowers to the hospital. When she brought him home, I dropped off a meal. Small gestures, but they mattered. Iris turned 6. By then, she'd met Violet several times. They had a cordial relationship, distant but not hostile. Iris called her Aunt Violet, though I'd never suggested the title. At Iris's birthday party that year, Violet and I ended up in the kitchen together, refilling drink pitchers. "She's amazing," Violet said, watching Iris through the doorway. "You're an incredible mother." "Thank you. I mean it. I see how she is with Owen, with you. She's confident, secure. She knows she's loved. That's the goal." Violet set down the pitcher she was holding. "I'm sorry I never said this properly. Not in letters or therapy or any of it. I'm sorry I tried to destroy your happiness. I'm sorry I made your childhood miserable. I'm sorry I wasted so many years hating you instead of loving you." I looked at my sister, at the woman she'd become, not the girl I'd grown up with, and not the woman who'd broken into my home, someone in between, someone trying. "I forgive you," I said. She started crying. "You don't have to say that. I know, but I mean it. I forgive you for what you did. That doesn't mean I forget it. That doesn't mean we go back to how things were, but it means I'm letting go of the anger, the resentment, the need to punish you for the rest of our lives." She hugged me. I let her. It felt strange and familiar all at once. When we pulled apart, she said, "Thank you for giving me a chance when I didn't deserve it." "We're family," I said. Complicated, messy, broken in places, but still family. Owen found us a few minutes later. He assessed the situation, saw Violet's tear-stained face, my own damp eyes. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Everything's okay." That night, after the party, after Iris was in bed, Owen and I sat on our back porch. The sky was full of stars. "I'm proud of you," he said. "For what?" "For being brave enough to forgive her, to let her back in even partially. That takes real strength, or stupidity." "No, it's strength. You could have held on to that anger forever. No one would have blamed you, but you chose differently." I thought about the years that had passed, the pain and betrayal and slow, painful healing. About Violet's journey from the woman who'd trashed my apartment to the woman who'd cried in my kitchen. "People can change," I said. "Not everyone. Not always. But sometimes." "Do you think she's really changed?" "I think she's trying. That's all I can ask for." 2 years later, Violet and I have what you might call a relationship. We're not close. We probably never will be. Too much history. Too many scars. But we're civil. We attend family gatherings together. Our kids play at Christmas. We text occasionally about parenting struggles or recipe recommendations. Mom and Dad are different too. They no longer play favorites, no longer pit us against each other. They've learned finally to love both daughters without conditions. Iris is 8 now, happy and confident. She knows she has an aunt, knows there's complicated history there, but it doesn't define her childhood the way it defined mine. Last month, Violet called me. I'm writing you a real apology, she said. Not the kind where I list my excuses. A real one, where I take full responsibility for everything I did. You don't have to. I do. Not for you. For me. I need to say it out loud, own all of it, and accept that some things can't be fully repaired. She sent it 3 days later. 27 pages. Handwritten. Every incident she could remember. From childhood cruelty to the apartment break-in. Every moment she'd made me feel small. Every way she'd betrayed my trust. I read it in one sitting, cried through most of it. Not because the memories didn't hurt anymore, but because I could see how much it had cost her to write them all down. At the end, she wrote, I can't take any of this back. I can't give you the childhood you deserved, or the sisterly relationship we should have had. All I can do is make sure I'm better now. Make sure my son never treats anyone the way I treated you. Make sure I spend the rest of my life being the person I should have been all along. I love you. I always have, even when I was doing everything possible to hurt you. And I'm sorry it took me 30 years to figure out how to show it. I kept the letter, put it in a box with our wedding photos and Iris's baby pictures and all the other artifacts of our life. Sometimes I take it out and read it. Remember where we started and how far we've come. It's not a fairy tale ending. It's not complete redemption or perfect reconciliation, but it's real. And it's enough. My sister said no one would ever date me. She cried when I got engaged before her. She tried to destroy my marriage, my home, my happiness. But I got the last word. Not through revenge or punishment, but through building a life so full of love that her hatred couldn't touch it. And eventually, after years of work and growth and painful honesty, we found our way to something resembling peace. It's not the relationship I dreamed of having with a sister, but it's the one we have. And after everything we've been through, that feels like its own kind of miracle.